Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But you know, KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast. This program is supported by San Juan Health Partners Urology, providing a wide range of personalized services for the whole family, including children. Our caring professionals are dedicated to helping meet your urology health needs with skill, experience, and service you need. For a complete listing of our services and to learn more, visit sanjuanhealthpartners.com or call 505-609-6300. San Juan Health Partners Urology, a division of San Juan Regional Medical Center. Now let me get to my guest who is here with me this morning. The general manager of Memory Gardens and Serenity & Company, Ernesto Martinez, is here. And Mr. Martinez, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. And as we've been talking before we came on the air this morning, it has been a little challenging, I would say, to run a cemetery in a desert climate during a couple of years of drought, and that's kind of where we find ourselves this spring with Memory Gardens.
Yes, sir.
And so what's been the biggest, challenge for you? As I've mentioned, and I think I want to say too off the top of the show here, I understand that this is a very emotional issue for a lot of folks who have family members buried at Memory Gardens, and so when they see the condition of the cemetery, they get very angry, very upset about the condition where their loved ones are, and I'm sure you can understand that as well.
Certainly.
And so with that being said, what steps are you taking to improve the condition of the cemetery this year?
Well, we are very hopeful that everything kind of comes together. We have spent the last 5 seasons working on the cemetery. It really kind of stumbled about 5 seasons ago. We let the primary groundskeeper, I let him go. There was some theft that we had to contend with, and we really stumbled when we lost his expertise. That initial year, we did not blow out the lines correctly, and so the start of the season, we had a lot of busted pipe and a lot of things that really probably could have been prevented had we not lost that expertise. But essentially, we stumbled a great deal. And as we tried to rectify the situation, we really found out that we had a declining cemetery.
And declining by what do you mean? Declining
just in its care, in its infrastructure, in its equipment, in its entirety. Truly, we didn't realize the depth of the decline. It didn't fall apart overnight, and so we did have to. We have a lot of infrastructure that we had to essentially rebuild, a lot of pipes, a lot of roadways, a lot of the bypass valves and blow-off valves and pumps and things that we had to essentially rebuild. And of course, the drought, as you mentioned, didn't help, but certainly wasn't the primary reason for the grass being dead.
Right.
We did some soil sampling throughout the cemetery. There was essentially no nutrients. The person that tested the soil said, "We don't know how the weeds are growing. There's nothing in the soil. There's no nutrients at all in the soil." So we did have to start at truly step one.
And this, you talk about 5 seasons ago. It's about 5. You talk about seasons as opposed to years.
That's correct.
But this is when your company purchased the cemetery. Is that correct?
We purchased the cemetery in November of 2011. So our first season was the spring of 2012.
Okay.
So it's been roughly 6 years. And again, we lost the expertise, but we really just had that declining cemetery that was really on the decline. So we really had to kind of regroup and start from scratch. And I mean that in every sense of the word. The soil was gone. There was no nutrients. Some of the basic equipment that we thought we should have was missing. We had to purchase brand new equipment. We purchased a brand new backhoe that was not in the plans, but essentially we were spending more money on the daily or the monthly repairs on that backhoe than what we were actually, we could buy a brand new unit and,
Right.
and paid a payment. We didn't have thatchers, we didn't have aerators, our lawnmower was pretty shot. So some of that basic equipment that we would expect to have to operate a cemetery really was on the decline. So we have spent the past 5 seasons improving our infrastructure. You know, we have replaced, I can't tell you how many feet of pipe and bypass valves and blow-off valves and water pumps, and we spent $35,000 on paving the front loop of the cemetery, and again in an effort to make things better. All the equipment we've had to purchase, we've added staff to the staff to help keep up with maintenance and taking care of services. You know, families. I've said since day one that it will never be a golf course. It's a functioning, operating cemetery. So we may have a section that may be pristine today, but we have an interment tomorrow with the water, and we're going to tear up turf. We're going to upset headstones and things. So it is an operating cemetery, and we do our best to keep things nice and maintain, but we do have daily operation.
I can hear a lot. I think I hear a lot of folks maybe who are watching us this morning saying, "But it's been 5 years, 5 seasons, 6 years almost. Why is it still looking the way it looks during the summer?" And I would imagine the climate, the drought, plays a big role in that. I think grass is the big gripe that everybody seems to have about the condition of the cemetery.
Yes, sir. And we understand that. April of last year, I was really, really excited. We saw a lot of improvement. We had a lot of seedlings coming up in our bare areas. And so I really was excited on our progress. And then we hit the drought where we were limited ditch water. We water off of the ditch. So it's not city water. We can't just, pay by the gallon that the city, that most folks think that we can do.
Right. You're limited by what you can take out of that ditch.
That's correct.
Runs right by.
That's correct. And as folks know, the ditch was on rotation, so we would have days that we didn't have water. Anyway, the progress that we had in April really was negated by the fact that we had 2 of the hottest days of the season with no water, and because we had fertilized and done things to improve the soil conditions with no water, it burnt what we had grown, and so it really kind of took us a step back rather than the step forward we were hoping for. And so when the grass essentially got burnt, it did look bad, and we were aware of that. We're hopeful now with the water that has come in that we're not going to have that same problem this year.
Right, and I think for a lot of folks, it's maybe hard to understand what some of the concerns are with the use of water. I think they see the ditch right there, and it's got water in it. So why don't you just pump out whatever you need and do the job to get the cemetery looking better? But then that leaves the folks at the other end of the ditch with no water.
That's correct, and we do have to share, and we are in line with 280 some odd folks that are on that ditch.
Got it. And so this year, though, you are hopeful.
Yes.
That water will be available, and you've got your staff, the right people in the right positions, I guess, to hopefully make a big difference in the cemetery this year. I mean, I'm asking you to go out on a limb here to project maybe next year, if we talk at this time, what we'll be talking about. Will we be talking about hopefully a green cemetery that's had a great season and folks have enjoyed it all summer and ready for another one in 2020?
Yes, sir. And that's our goal, is to make it better. Over the past 5 seasons, the cemetery crew, office staff and the grounds crew have taken a beating. They really have seen the ugly side of emotion. And I applaud them because they have worked through it. They have managed to keep their head up high and keep doing what we do. We have seen a lot of progress. So I know that it may not be enough for folks, but we have seen a great deal of progress. I'm hopeful this year that those dead zones and the areas of the cemetery that just haven't caught up to the rest will get there.
Is there any area of Memory Gardens that you're pleased with the condition today?
Well, there are sections, yes, that have come back very, very strong. As a whole, the cemetery is green. We do have some patches, some areas that need some attention. We are expanding some of the sprinkler zones, and some of the ones that are closer to the road need some attention, need some fine tuning, and that's what we're focusing on now. This season is to make sure those areas get zoned in. Something that folks probably don't understand is that the way that the irrigation system was laid out is it is an all or nothing system. So if we lose a section of pipe, the entire system is down while we fix that. It's not a zone by zone.
Right. Like someone would have maybe at their house.
That's correct.
Where they can shut off the side yard and just work on the front yard, or
That's
water
correct.
the front yard and worry about the side yard later, or the backyard is on a different zone. Yours is all or nothing.
All or nothing, yes, sir.
Interesting. And so with that being said, Mr. Martinez, you can understand folks being upset.
Certainly.
About the condition of their loved ones' graves when they go and visit, and it's just heartbreaking for them to see it in that condition. And so I hear what you're saying, that sometimes your staff has been the brunt of some of that raw emotion, which is unfortunate. I think we all can agree. And so you're hopeful that with some of the improvements that things will get better. I know you have faced the crowd at the cemetery on at least one occasion to try to give your point of view, and that went okay? How do you feel it went?
It went well. I made a commitment to the community that we were going to fix it. I know it's been a lot slow going. We recognize that it's been slow going, but we still have that commitment. We still have that commitment to our community and to the families that we serve, the families that have entrusted their loved ones to us. So we really are expecting this season to be our to prove the fact that we were committed.
Okay. This is the show me season, maybe, is what you're saying. And
Yes.
hopefully people will see the difference.
Yes, sir.
With your efforts that's been building now for the last 5 seasons.
That's correct.
Of getting the equipment repaired and the right people in the right positions, maybe, and the necessary equipment that you would need. Now, I'd like you to spend a few minutes explaining to me the business of a perpetual care cemetery, because that's what Memory Gardens is, and that's how it's set up. And so if someone goes and wants to get a plot at Memory Gardens, they're paying a certain amount of money, and some of that money then is kind of goes into a different separate fund for the future care of the grounds.
That is correct. Perpetual care cemetery, by definition, is money that's set aside. In our case, we take 100% of your money. 40% of that is put into a trust. The trust is overseen by the New Mexico Department of Banking and Finance. They oversee that perpetual care money. It's designed that once the last interment occurs at the cemetery, that fund is available to maintain the cemetery 100 years past its last interment. So it is designed to be cared for even after the cemetery stops making money.
I see. But that money is something that you can't just go into and say, oh, I need to put in a new sprinkler system. Can I get a little withdrawal from that fund?
That's correct.
You can't touch it.
There can be drafts off of it, but it's not even enough to help with salaries. I mean, it really is pretty limited on what we can use that withdrawals for.
You're limited. Not that there's
Yes.
not a lot of money in there, but you're limited as to what you can use it for.
That's correct.
And that's what we're talking about. Understood. And so really your budget comes from the fees, the payments that people are making to put their loved ones in there. That's really where your operation money comes from.
Absolutely. And the owners of Serenity have done a great job at giving me the authority to do what we have to do to make the cemetery better. We really have not looked at a budget per se. We do what we can to make things move forward.
They haven't given you a blank check, though.
Essentially, they have, because I have been able to purchase new equipment and new infrastructure and pave the roads and hire the staff that we need. And Yes, sir. They essentially have.
Interesting. Okay. And so what's your message to people who are watching and listening to us this morning who have been so upset about the condition of the cemetery over the last few years that just get so emotional and get very upset, visibly upset when they go to visit their loved one?
Well, I guess I will first want to apologize that it fell into the repair that it did, because it really was never our intention to let the cemetery decline the way that it did. It was a declining cemetery. There was issues when we bought the property, but it really did kind of backslide, and we never intended for it to fall apart the way that it truly fell apart. I asked for maybe not patience, but just understanding that we are working on it diligently. I get it that it's not fast enough for some folks. I know that no matter what we do, there may always be brown areas of the cemetery. We live in a desert. So I think things like that, just understanding that, we want it to be nice. We want it to be comforting when folks go to visit, and we're doing everything we can to work on that and make it happen.
All right. But you do admit that it's not in the condition that you'd like to see it in.
Of course. We would love to have it absolutely pristine and green, and we could be proud of it for our community.
Ernesto Martinez is my guest this morning. He's the regional manager for the New Mexico part of Serenity and Company. We are talking about Memory Gardens, the cemetery on East Main Street in Farmington that has been under so much scrutiny for the past few years. There's a lot of folks who are very vocal in some of their disappointments in the condition of the cemetery. And so hopefully with your appearance this morning, you're kind of setting the stage to say, give us this season. We feel we have the staff in place, the equipment in place, the water that we need to make a big difference in the condition of the cemetery summer 2019.
That's correct.
All right. Let's take a short break.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Martinez, we will take a short break. Back with my guest and more in just a moment right here on KSJE. This program on KSJE is supported by Citizens Trust and Investment Corporation, providing a competent, innovative, and caring team of professionals to serve wealth management, trust administration, employee benefit plans, retirement planning, and estate settlement needs. Find out more about Citizens Trust and Investment Corporation at 505-599-0181. I'm Scott Michlin. My guest on the radio this morning, Ernesto Martinez, is here. He is the regional manager for Serenity and Company, and that includes Memory Gardens, the cemetery here in Farmington. And Mr. Martinez, again, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You live in the Gallup area.
Well, I have a home here in Farmington.
You do have a home here in
Yes,
Farmington,
sir.
too. Got you. But
I've been a resident. I split my time between Gallup and Farmington.
because
Yes, sir.
you manage properties in both communities.
That's correct.
For the company. And so you've been here to talk about Memory Gardens, and as folks who are just joining us, I know this is a very emotional issue. There's a lot of folks who are very upset with the condition at the cemetery today, and rightly so. I think you'd agree with that.
Sure.
It's not where you would like to see it.
That's correct.
And so you are here to talk about your plans, the company's plans to bring the cemetery hopefully a little closer to what people remember it as. And I think folks have fond memories of the cemetery, and maybe our memory's a little fuzzy, maybe not, but folks certainly want to see green grass and the cemetery maybe in a more park-like setting than it has been for the last several years. Is that a fair statement?
That is a very fair statement. But I think in the past 5 seasons, we really have improved. There is a great deal of progress. I hope folks do see that. Is it perfect? Is it pristine? No. Is it where we want it to be? No. But we really have had some strides in the improvement of the cemetery. When it fell apart again, the spring of 2013, it really it's come a long way.
And let me ask you a bit about some of the concerns folks have shared with me as well about some of the, maybe there's some rodent problems, some prairie dog problems,
Certainly.
and we know they love to dig, and that's an issue that is a problem for anything that's any property that's near the river or wide open spaces and things like that. You're not excluded from that.
That's
cemetery.
correct. Yes, we have worked with the county to eradicate the prairie dogs, groundhogs, whatever rodent it is, and we've been pretty successful at pushing those creatures back. But we are next to the river, and our neighbors aren't as proactive as we are trying to be in eradicating those. So we can push them back, but they do kind of migrate back into our area.
Gotcha. So it's just kind of a constant battle, I suppose,
Absolutely.
is what you are saying.
That's correct.
And with maintenance of cemeteries like memory gardens, I mean, it's a pretty big, and I don't know how you gauge the size of cemeteries, but I would say it's one of the larger cemeteries that I have seen. It's certainly larger than maybe Green Lawn in Farmington. What was it, a medium sized? Could you classify them, or how big would you say?
I would say we're a fairly large cemetery. We actually probably have more undeveloped area of our property than we've developed.
Wow.
So it really is a large area of plot space.
Lots of acreage.
Lots of acreage.
And lots of room for growth, apparently.
That's correct.
And so in the future, as you grow, and certainly we're going to need space for folks, will it be the same type of cemetery look, or is there a plan maybe to xeriscape and to be able to maybe to avoid some of these problems that you find yourself in drought years and things like that?
Yes, sir. Our next section that we develop will be a xeriscaped garden, and it is to be responsible corporate citizens. You know, our water condition, even though we've received a lot of water this season, we may not always have that. So we do want to be responsible for our future and our kids' future and our grandkids' future. So we have talked about developing a new xeriscape garden. We've looked to the Veterans Cemetery in Phoenix that is completely xeriscaped and absolutely beautiful. We have some neighboring communities that have xeriscaped gardens that allow families to put benches and bird baths and upright markers and things that we can't have with a grass section because of the weekly maintenance. And so the next section will be xeriscaped, and that'll give families an option of where they want to be laid to rest.
Give them a choice, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Right? And not if they want that, they can choose that. If they want the more traditional, they can choose that, I suppose.
That's correct.
As long as there's room.
That's correct.
Is what you're saying.
Yes.
And for a lot of folks, so I imagine there are some cemeteries that have maybe changed from a grass type cemetery to xeriscaped, and that can cause issues too for folks maybe who bought their plot thinking it was always going to be grass and always going to be a park-like setting, and now it's a difference.
That's correct, and it has Gallup is a community that faced that. The owners of the cemetery went xeriscaped. It really 10 years down later, because this happened about 10 years ago, that they stopped watering the grass, and they had a little bit different situation. The water that they were pumping out of the ground was so acidic that it really was killing the grass.
I see.
And so they had a different reason, but the xeriscape 10 years later has really become part of our community and part of the expectation for families. And as I said, it allows upright markers and bird baths and benches and things that we couldn't have before.
Right. Understood. Another issue that folks have brought up is some of the stones that sink, that are a little crooked, that aren't the way they were when they were first put in. I guess that's an ongoing maintenance issue for any kind of a cemetery like yours.
Absolutely. With the watering, the soil gets loose and the markers are heavy, and yes, they settle. We do have a vault requirement, which allows, folks think that the vault is for the protection of the casket. While it affords some protection of the casket, essentially it's for the maintenance of the property. We can tamp the dirt in tighter so you have less settling of the headstone and sinking of the grave space. And it does happen. The ground freezes and it melts and those stones settle. So it is an ongoing maintenance issue. I wouldn't say it's a challenge. It's just something that happens in every cemetery with every rock that sits on top of the ground. They settle.
Right. And so if someone finds a problem with their marker, with their site that their family has paid for, they can put in a maintenance request, and those are dealt with pretty quickly, or
Sure.
Could it be faster?
I guess I'd ask folks for patience when they put in a work order. We do have, it is a functioning cemetery. So our grounds crew, although they focus on those maintenance requests, our primary focus is laying people to rest. So when we have a very busy time at the cemetery, the grounds crew are burying folks, and that upkeep of the cemetery is secondary.
I see. But they should be fixed eventually.
Absolutely.
Is what you're saying to us.
Yes. You place a work order and our grounds crew will work on it. Yes.
Got it. And so what are your plans, your immediate plans for this spring, Mr. Martinez? As we mentioned, you've talked about some staff changes and getting people back in the right places, some maintenance, some replacement of the irrigation system and improvements there. You feel you got everybody in place, ready to go as soon as the watering season starts and the fertilizing season starts? People should start seeing lots of activity out there?
We do, yes. March 1st is our cleanup time, our cleanup date. So any decorations that have been left out from the holidays, things like that, need to be removed by March 1st. Then we abide back by the springtime rules that they have to be in the approved vases and non-breakable items and things for the protection of not only the grounds crew but the general public. We don't want somebody walking around and get cut with something that was breakable and got broken. So March 1st is our cleanup time, and then we're going to start doing the aerating and thatching and fertilizing and things that need to happen. Again, that was one of our things that hurt us last year, is that fertilizing to try to make that soil more conducive to growth. And because we didn't have the water, it burned it more than it helped it.
Right. This year should be a different story.
Absolutely.
Absolutely different story. You mentioned some of the items that people bring. I know a lot of folks do like to decorate the sites and flowers or toys or different things like that. And I imagine there are rules about that because you have to maintain that cemetery and you have to do the grounds work and things around it. And that's why the stones are flat, I guess, to allow easier maintenance of those grounds. And so folks can leave things for a certain amount of time, but at some point they are collected and disposed of?
That's correct. March 1st is the time. They have to be in the approved vase that is generally part of the headstone design, and those can be kept there, but everything else needs to be cleaned away.
Gotcha. And is it just the one time a year, or is it more frequently throughout the year? March 1st is coming up, you mentioned.
That's
but
correct.
I imagine you have to clean it up other times too.
Certainly. There's different times throughout the season, but we really focus on March 1st to be able to get the soil prepped for the start of the season.
That's a cemetery-wide deadline, I suppose.
That's correct.
Is what you're telling us.
That's correct.
Got you. And of course, I imagine all these things are spelled out in the contract and
Sure,
the agreement that
in the
folks
rules.
have when they do that. And this may be several generations removed for some folks today who are trying to keep track of what they should expect and what they shouldn't expect from Memory Gardens.
That's correct. The rules are laid out, and anybody can see the cemetery rules and regulations. But yes, sir, the contracts that you mentioned, the cemetery's been owned by several different entities throughout the years. Serenity and Company, we have our own set of rules, our own contracts, but essentially we try to make sure that families' expectations are met and insofar as the contracts and what those rules are.
Right. And I know a lot of folks may feel that perpetual maintenance means that it should be perpetually green and park-like all the time year-round, and it just, you can't do it. I mean, I'm not a gardener. Right. Goodness knows, I don't even have green grass, the same shade of green in my house any summer, any time. But it's an issue, right, for trying to maintain this type of setting.
Sure.
With different issues that are going on. And you've mentioned to me already this morning about some of the challenges that there's been. In our remaining moments we have this morning together, I do want to ask you a bit, that I know you can understand the frustration that a lot of folks maybe have with the condition of some of their plots at Memory Gardens. Sure.
And we're just as frustrated. I mean, every time we have a setback, it is I can't even come up with the word. It is frustrating because we are trying to do the right thing. We are trying to move it forward. We are trying to make it more of a park-like setting. And every time we have a setback, I was telling you earlier before the show that, last spring in April, we had a lot of the little seedlings coming up, and you could really see where it was starting to develop. And that 2 weeks without any water during the hottest time of the year and everything died out, it was frustrating and it was heartbreaking because we have put so much blood, sweat, and tears into the cemetery. Again, I get it that it's not fast enough for folks and their loved ones, and I'm sorry that they feel like we're big bad corporate America, that we don't care, because from day one I made the commitment that we do care and that we will fix it. It didn't decline overnight, and it certainly wasn't going to get fixed overnight. But I am hopeful that this season truly is our coup de grace.
Well, and we hope that that you can come back and show us
absolutely
how things are looking, and folks will be able to see it for themselves.
Sure.
So I know that's really going to be the proof in the performance, is when folks go out there to visit their loved ones and can see the cemetery that they would expect for their loved ones, and that's what you're hoping to provide this season.
That's correct.
And so, as you mentioned, March 1st is the kind of deadline, and we should see some grounds work starting to happen out there after March 1.
Yes, sir.
And the irrigation season should start, I think, April 1 or around there, depending on the water supplies.
That's correct.
And so, again, as we talk about this, and I want folks who are listening and watching to be able to kind of see how things progress as we move into the summer season, hopefully with enough water and enough staff and enough fertilizer and enough all the different things that are in place to really make a big difference for folks who have loved ones at Memory Gardens.
Right. We have an annual Memorial Day event out at the cemetery, and that truly is, I'm hoping when folks come to see us for our Memorial Day event, they can truly walk the grounds of the cemetery and be proud of it as I am.
Good. Well, we hope to be able to have an update from you in the next few months, hopefully, and folks will be able to see what we're talking about. I know for right now it's a lot of words, but I think you seem very sincere in wanting to make this happen.
Sure.
And I think, again, you've talked to these folks who are so very upset about the conditions and know how they feel and how emotional they get about the conditions of their loved one's final resting place. And so it seems to me you want to make a difference and want to improve that.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Mr. Martinez, I appreciate your time this morning.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ernest Martinez, he is the regional manager for Serenity & Company. We've been talking about Memory Gardens in Farmington this morning. I'll be back with more in just a minute. This is KSJE, and the time is 8:50. This program on KSJE is supported by Citizens Trust and Investment Corporation, providing a competent, innovative, and caring team of professionals to serve wealth management, trust administration, employee benefit plans, retirement planning, and estate settlement needs. Find out more about Citizens Trust and Investment Corporation at 505-599-0181. It's Wednesday morning here on KSJE, and it's time for our weekly trip to the Encouragement Lab. Look who is standing by. Dr. Mike Hattabaugh, good morning, is right there. Good to see you, and thanks for being with us, as always, with some great words of advice. This week, we're talking about desire, huh?
Desire. You know, it's a week after Valentine's Day.
Yes, it is.
Valentine is definitely the holiday of desire, isn't it? I desire my partner. And there's lots of great literature about desire. Here's what we know from the research, though, is desire can't be planned. It can't. It comes and it goes. And I counsel and coach couples, and guess what? They're all looking for desire. And when I tell them, quit trying to find it, it'll show up.
Right. Okay.
That's big advice for the day.
It kind of has to happen. Is that what you're saying? Right? It just, you can't.
Well, it doesn't. And then it ends up tearing. So when you desire something that you can't force, Stephen Schneider is an expert on this. He's out of New York City. He's actually a sex therapist. Got a great book. But he talks about the fact that so many couples go looking for this instead of looking for, how can I find joy in my relationship? How can I be connected? You know, and how can we do things together that we just enjoy in a personal way? And then he says, letting the desire show up when it's ready.
Right.
And that's my point here, is that I see a lot of conflict in couples that go looking for desire, and they're mad that their partner's not giving them, you know, on that side of the fence, things that they think they ought to have, when if they just would relax and enjoy each other's company, desire shows up. And it does. You know, I'm saying 31 years of marriage, my wife and I haven't desired each other every minute of every day for 31 years, but when we relax and just be ourselves, it shows up on a regular basis. And it surprises us sometimes when it shows up, but it will show up if you quit trying to force it.
And that sounds like the key words of advice there, right? Is to stop trying to force that from happening and just let it happen naturally.
Yeah, because you're trying to, make somebody into something they aren't. You want them to think like you or be like you, and that's control. And that actually is what tears down relationships. So when you just let it happen, when you just say, you know what, I just appreciate you for being you, then their desire will show up because they'll really feel accepted for who they are. And all of a sudden, desire something that, again, it surprises you when it shows up. And if it didn't surprise you, it wouldn't be very strong. We can't just go, oh, now I'm going to desire that thing. Think about, so here's an example.
Okay.
If you're not thinking about food at all and you walk into a room that smells like a freshly baked chocolate chip cookie, what just happened to your desire?
I have a desire for cookies.
Very much so. That's why they tell you to bake a dozen in your oven if you're trying to sell your house.
There you go.
If somebody's coming over to look at your house, bake some chocolate chip cookies and let that smell linger in your house. And it will create a desire for them to like the house. And that's a great example. I can't make you desire it. I can't just go, I'm going to think right now that I'm going to desire a chocolate chip cookie. It doesn't work.
No.
Right now I'm talking about it.
Right.
I'm not desiring it, but if that smell hit my nose, it would show up really fast.
There you go. Okay. That is good advice. Dr. Hattabaugh, and I'm hungry, so thanks for that. Thank you so much. We will talk to you again next week.
All right. See you then.
All right. That is Dr. Mike Hattabaugh. He is with us every Wednesday from the Encouragement Lab right here on KSJE Farmington. Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.